Hey guys, it's Danny. Welcome to our second Q&A episode of this year. Today I'm going to be answering some more of your questions that you left in the comment section of the series of this video. Today we also have some photos, so without further ado, let's just get on with it because I want to get to as many questions as possible. Before we start though, this episode, together with this entire series, is sponsored by rePotme.com, who offers you everything you could possibly need to properly take care of your orchid. From potting mixes to pots, fertilizers, accessories, and everything in between. And not only for orchids, but also for other houseplants as well, such as cacti and succulents. So I will link you to their website down below in the description and in the pinned comment, and I will also link you the products that I personally like the most, so feel free to check them out at any time. And with that said, let us get to the questions. By the way, quick note, if you have questions and you would like to attach a photo to them, just upload it to your social media platform like Instagram or Facebook, and then somebody's happy, and then copy paste the link to your comment under this video. And that's how you send me photos. They will not get approved right away by YouTube, but I will go into the spam folder and approve them. Right, let's get to the questions. Java is saying, I've got a mini Phalaenopsis that has 2 basal cakeys and a terminal spike with only 1 leaf. So does this mean the mother plant will never grow a new leaf? Will the existing spike with a leaf grow more leaves or a flower spike? And they've also attached a photo, which you will see on the screen. And by the looks of things, yes, indeed, we are dealing with a terminal spike Phalaenopsis orchid that has 2 cakeys. Well, you are in luck. Well, considering the situation, you're not necessarily in luck because you have a terminal spike, but the cakeys look great. So for those of you who don't know, Phalaenopsis orchids sometimes do produce what we call terminal spikes from the crown, from the middle of the crown. We call them terminal because usually after that, the orchid doesn't really survive anymore. Don't panic. It will survive in a way through baby plants, through its cakeys. But chances are, and especially if that flower spike destroyed the crown, chances are the mother plant will not survive. It will stay around for as long as it can, maybe even a few more years, to grow the cakeys and maintain its leaves green, but after a while it will slowly wither off. Judging by the photo, the flower spike in the middle is quite damaging to the crown. I don't think this particular orchid will produce any more leaves from the crown, but the cakeys, they look very nice. One of them looks like it's coming from the flower spike. Maybe it's just the angle of the picture. If they're basal, great. You don't have to wait around for a spike keiki. What will happen in the following year or so is that those keikis will produce roots of their own. You can detach them when they have enough roots. You can let them be, absolutely fine. The flower spike, it can go either way. It can just wither off. It can create a keiki. It can create secondary branches. You never know, but all of these options are actually viable. So what you're interested in most now are the keikis and making sure that you keep the mother plant still hydrated and fertilized and in good light, because those leaves that it has will create the food for the keikis, which don't have roots at the moment, so they depend on the mother plant. And just wait for the keikis to produce roots. And you can separate them when they have multiple roots of about maybe 5 centimeters or so. That's about 2 inches. So 4 roots of about 3 inches or 5 centimeters should be enough for you to separate them. Next question from Alisas. What are your thoughts about getting carnivorous plants to help keep the occasional mealy bugs in check? My thoughts are not that great. Mealy bugs don't fly around and don't necessarily move all that much, even though they can, absolutely, but they don't really move as much as to go on carnivorous plants. So the carnivorous plants we're talking about, which are most effective against bugs such as fungus gnats and other flying insects you might have in your grow room, they're the sundews, and I do have videos about those. I'll link you one down below. They create, should we call them tentacles? I'm not entirely sure how to call them scientifically. They have very sticky leaves. So whatever flies and lands on a sundew gets stuck there, and the sundew feeds on it. Now, in order for sundews to catch stuff, that stuff needs to either crawl on the sundew or fly. Usually it's more effective against flying stuff. I've never had an ant get stuck on a sundew, even though you guys know I have ants. So being that mealybugs don't fly, I'm not sure if sundews will be so effective. Also, if you're thinking about the pitcher plants, what's their, I forget the names. Yeah, mealybugs are not attracted necessarily to those unless they're attracted to eating their leaves. And the pitchers themselves even, but without falling in necessarily. So again, pitcher plants not effective against mealybugs. I don't see any carnivorous plant being specifically effective against mealybugs. They're a nasty little critter, but they are effective against fungus gnats 100%, and you should watch the video if you don't really know what I'm talking about. Other than that, yeah, carnivorous plants, not necessarily the best pest control you can have. They're very specialized, let's say, in what type of pest they attract and they consume. And they consume anything, any type of insect, but not all insects are attracted to the sundews. Next question. Actually, I think 2 people asked something similar. Of all my phals, I have 3 that didn't produce flower spikes this year. They bloomed in previous years and have more leaves and roots than before. All of them receive regular watering, good light, and fertilizer. The potting medium is in good condition. They seem very healthy, and there is no sign of anything wrong. What might be the reason for an orchid to skip a year of blooming? Thank you. I really appreciate your videos. To be honest, when we say Phalaenopsis orchids, I guess we mean the typical flower shop Phalaenopsis. Those things are hybridized and selected to no end. There is no way to tell what type of genetics they have. And if you guys remember, in one of my previous videos, I told you that I always tell you to give a cool down of, let's say, 17 degrees Celsius, even though I know many of you have new flower spikes at 20 degrees Celsius. You don't need to go that low. But the reason why I give you 17 degrees Celsius as, let's say, the thing you need to aim for is because some of these very complex hybrids have some species that need more of a cool down than others. Some even have some summer blooming orchids mixed in their genetics, and it's impossible to tell how this complex heritage influences that individual. Some orchids will just bloom without you having to give a cool down, just because they're very complex hybrids and you never know what you're gonna get, like Forrest Gump once said. So if everything looks absolutely perfect with the orchid, then my only suspicion is the cool down. It has not been enough. Maybe you didn't go low enough. Maybe it needs even lower than 17 degrees Celsius. If 17 degrees Celsius doesn't work, try 15 degrees Celsius. I wouldn't go lower. 15 is still okay. And extend the period. Some orchids just need more. And the thing that they bloomed in previous years, doesn't necessarily mean anything because each year is different. Each year the temperature in your home might be slightly different depending on how cold it is outside, and these tiny variations that maybe you're not aware of that much. Maybe you change the location of the orchid and now it sits closer to maybe a heater or a radiator. You might not think it's much, but maybe that 1 degree Celsius makes a difference. It could be. So a very, 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 very healthy orchid doesn't really have any reason, like Phalaenopsis orchid, doesn't really have any reason not to rebloom unless it doesn't get that proper chill down or maybe a more abrasive chill down. Next up, since we were talking about fungus gnats, Lynn Anne asks, how do you get rid of gnats in orchid pots? And do they cause funguses or even other disease in orchids? No. Okay, let's take them one by one. I do not get rid of fungus gnats in my orchid pots because I don't really mind much that they're there. I mind they fly around. That's very annoying. And again, I'll refer you to the video of the Drosera carnivorous plants, which do a very good job against fungus gnats, and they have become very available in flower shops, especially in recent years. You can also put those yellow stickers or blue stickers. You can find them at garden centers or even flower shops. You can put a few around your room, and that's going to limit quite a bit the population. However, when it comes to the larvae in the pots, well, one, I don't have issues because, believe it or not, even if I obsess so much with self-watering and moisture and sphagnum moss and stuff, my pots don't stay moist. There is a reason why I keep trying to retain moisture in my pots. My pots do not stay moist and they don't attract fungus gnats. Some pots that have a more soily mixture, like the ones for the terrestrial orchids, yeah, they do attract maybe some fungus gnats to some extent, but I've never had real issues with like roots getting eaten by the fungus gnats. I don't know if they can eat orchid roots because they're quite tough, quite fleshy. So honestly, I don't really bother with fungus gnats. They are so annoying in the house, I absolutely know, but I would try like to catch the adults, not to like repot, change the medium and so on. If you have fungus gnat issues like beyond what's considered acceptable, maybe the potting mixes you use are staying a little bit too wet and the fungus gnats are attracted to that, because fungus gnats actually do not cause funguses. The moisture causes fungus. Fungus gnats actually love funguses. I think the larvae feeds on it. See, I'm not entirely sure. Fungus gnats do not eat like plants and the leaves and everything, at least the adults do not. But they also do not cause fungus. They are attracted to fungus and they lay the eggs there, but they do not cause it, don't worry. Disease, no, I personally have never experienced anything like that. Fungus gnats are more annoying than anything because they fly in your mouth, pretty much. And having them in the house, yeah, no. But I wouldn't necessarily worry about the larvae unless you see like the roots are being eaten. I would try to control the adults and also make sure that your orchid pots don't stay too moist because that can have bad repercussions to your orchid. Alrighty, let us take another picture, shall we? A question from Amy. My Dendrobium Kyle Quintal, which is a rotostictum crossed with little atro. Oh, so it's a Latoria Dendrobium. Is looking sick. I think she's been getting like this since an overflow in the tub upstairs leaked. I think it was leaked through the ceiling onto her. Been there, my AC leaked on my orchids as well. It seemed like after that her leaves discolored and died, and when I checked, her roots were almost all dead. But now I wonder if there's something else going on. And let's see the picture, see if there's something else going on. And yeah, I think there is something else going on, and I think you are dealing with a fungal infection. I had such a thing happening at some point with one of my Encyclia orchids. I thought I would never save it, and this was like a decade ago. But in the end, it just worked out. If you guys know, am not a fan of fungicides. Typically, I think somebody else in this position would tell you to use a fungicide on your orchid. Maybe a systemic fungicide if there is such a thing, I don't know. How I go about these things is I just let them take their course and in time eliminate like the old growth with the fungus, and in all the cases that I've had, it kind of just went away on its own. As the orchid grew, it kind of fought it off. So in my opinion, the orchid, as it will continue to grow, it will not have these discolorations or these blackened dots that I see. And mind you, this is just what I'm seeing from the picture. It could very well be some sunburn, although sunburn doesn't really look like that. So first, maybe make sure that the orchid doesn't receive way too much sun and it overheats, just to eliminate that. But my guess, because there is also a little bit of pitting on the leaves here, my guess is that you're dealing with a fungal infection. And from here on, really it's up to you to decide and to investigate if you want to go the route of fungicides, if you think they will help, or you kind of just want to see how things play out. In all of the cases that I've experienced, the orchids fought it off. But yeah, the older leaves will always have those pitting. But I do believe what I'm seeing here is a fungal infection, and if you would like, investigate it more, maybe consider a fungicide, but I'm not the right person to tell you to use a fungicide or what fungicide to use because I don't use them myself. Also, I think you've already done this, but make sure that you repot the orchid, cut away all of those dead roots and whatever mushy thing you see on the orchid. If you have a mushy pseudobulb, remove it. All of that mush is a breeding ground for pathogens, including fungal spores, funguses, and things of the sorts, which can affect the orchid. Make sure it's as clean, quote unquote, as possible. So you should do that, like, even if you decide not to use fungicides. Next question from Fran. Oh no, they are dealing with mealy bugs. So they're saying that they go every day with a Q-tip and remove all of the visible bugs, but the next day they are there again. I know, I even repotted and washed every plant and dumped the worst infected and cleaned the sunroom from top to bottom, even down to the cords and the blinds. What can I do? I'm close to giving up on my hobby, but I don't want to do that. I have watched your bug videos, by the way. Thanks for your fabulous videos. You're welcome. I don't have a video on mealybugs. Maybe I should do one. So yeah, mealybugs can be quite annoying. The thing is you see them, so you can insist and persevere. Okay, if all else fails, and this is kind of a last resort situation, maybe not last resort, I didn't ask, did you consider using proper insecticides? There will be some insecticides, systemic insecticides, which will work on mealybugs. They are toxic. I don't like to use insecticides, but if you're desperate, by all means, do what you have to do. Don't listen to what I do necessarily. Do what you have to do. Or you could try another thing which might affect the orchids, but I mean, at this point, right, if you're close to giving up, just get yourself some isopropyl alcohol, 70%. I think depending where you are, this will be like your typical rubbing alcohol. In my region, it's not. I have ethyl as like the typical alcohol, but you can actually find isopropyl as well, and just go to town, spray everything, not the roots. The base of the orchid, yes, but the roots, no. Now, this method will actually completely kill off all of the live mealybugs. The problem with the mealybugs is that they can hide in sheaths and in the root ball and all of those. So getting them out of the root ball might be a little bit more complicated. Try the whole like alcohol bath situation minus the roots. And if that doesn't work out, I would just not call it quits, but like go with proper insecticides. Again, I don't have something to recommend you because the insecticide that I use against thrips, which is spinosad, it did not work on mealybugs. So I cannot recommend you one, but if you do a little bit of a Google search, you will find something that works against mealybugs. And I wish you good luck and I hope you don't give up, but I know how a bug infestation can make you give up, trust me. I went through two. It was awful. And I do have some mealybugs now, but they're kind of easily maintained with alcohol. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm not going with Q-tips, but I'm just gonna bathe you in isopropyl alcohol. Some leaves, which are a lot more affected, will not make it, but it's fine because I'm at my wit's end. All right, next up, we're gonna have a concert, sorry. Short concert. Okay, next up, let's take another photo. So Abby is asking, what is happening with this Phalaenopsis roots? The left root died, the second to the left is dying, and the one on the right has a sickly yellow and black color. So by the photo, I would guess that this is some sort of fertilizer burn or hard water burn, salt burn of sorts. So definitely look into the water you're using. If you're using tap water, it might be a little hard. If you're using fertilizer, again, maybe you're dosing too much, or it might just be the combination. Like if you have very hard water and you're using fertilizer too, you know, combine them together and you get a little bit too much salt content. That's how it looks to me. It's a burn for sure. And I don't know how old this potting mix is. It doesn't look extremely old, but I would definitely look into something that is creating excessive salt buildups. Now, if you're not flushing, as it were, your pot, maybe you should. It's nothing complicated. You should just leave your orchid in normal water to soak, like for 15 minutes, then take it out of there and run again some water, not the same water, but a different type of water, like from the faucet, run it through the pot. And do this about once a month. Maybe that will help eliminate the buildup. But since it's on the top, I am inclined to believe it's some sort of salt burn, or maybe the water has something this orchid doesn't like. I don't know where you live. Do you have fluoride in the water? I don't know if fluoride affects anything. We don't have fluoride in the water here, but it could, like the internet says it could. I would inspect the water source and then maybe the fertilizer or the combination of the two. Next question from E. Blake. If I left an open container of water on the shelf beside my orchid, cup, bowl, or repurposed food container, would that help add humidity in the air from them? Sadly, no. Especially if it's a cup or like a container, the water will create that water tension barrier at the top. It will evaporate so incredibly slow. It will create absolutely no difference. One, if you would like to raise humidity around your orchid, even a humidity tray, like with some pebbles or something inside, maybe a bigger humidity tray, even that would be a little bit more efficient, but again, not very. I have an experiment that is more than a decade old at this point. I'll link it to it down below if you can stand the cringe. But I did do like some anecdotal measurings and stuff. Humidity trays, especially if they're tiny, they don't do anything pretty much for the orchid. More efficient would be to have a humidifier, and I see nowadays there are all sorts of tiny humidifiers. Some of them are rechargeable, they don't need a wire. Even that would be a lot more efficient. But my real question is, do you actually need to raise humidity for your orchid? Because if you just have a normal flower shop Phalaenopsis, I would absolutely not bother with humidity. Absolutely not. It's not needed. They don't need humidity. Cattleyas, they don't need increased humidity. Dendrobiums, they don't need increased humidity. I do not increase humidity for no one here. If I would have a Miltoniopsis, I would go the extra mile, but I don't really have Miltoniopsis. So, first and foremost, I don't think you need extra humidity because most orchids in the flower shops simply do not require extra humidity. And if your orchid dries way too fast, just water it more frequent or adapt your potting mix to something more adequate to your environment. Maybe something that retains a little bit more water, and hey presto, you're set to go. No need to leave little cups next to your orchid, but it's sweet. It's sweet that you thought about it and you wanted to improve the conditions for your orchid, but I don't think it's necessary, so don't worry about it. Question from Maya. I hope you're doing well, by the way. I posted this question in the comment section of a previous video. Oh no, but I'm reposting it here as well, so it has better chances to be answered. Like a little parenthesis here, when I see my comments, like in the feed, they're not separated by video, they're chronological. So I have comments one after the other from all of my discography, not really, all of my archive of videos. And I have over 2,000 videos. So there's a lot of comments. So sometimes I do skip comments, but I can actually go to separate videos and look at the comment section and just, get the comments or the questions from there. So that's why I see these questions a lot more, because if I just look in my feed, this is gonna be a million comments from my billions of videos. So that's why I skip comments, you guys. I'm sorry. It is really hard to keep up with them, and also to remove spam and all of that. Anyway, so my Cycnotus Wine Delight went from flower drop to new growth without going dormant and losing its leaves. Why is he doing this? And can I help him go dormant by cutting water and fertilizer altogether, sorry. Also, I have a very young single bulb Catasetum tenebrosum that began losing leaves. Do the young Catasetum orchids behave as adult ones? Do they too lose leaves and go dormant, meaning have to stop watering and fertilize them? Alrighty, so let's answer the first question. It is absolutely fine if your Cycnotus Wine Delight doesn't want to go through a dormancy. Mine did that too because he is a hybrid, and hybrids sometimes do not behave like they should. Some of these orchids are crossed together with Catasetum type, let's say, orchids that do not really have much of a dormancy. They're crossed together with one that has dormancy. So sometimes you can get a hybrid which will follow one of the parent one year and maybe another of the parent the next year. It's a bit of a gamble with these hybrids, so don't worry. Just listen to your orchid. Orchids will always tell you what to do, as I always say. If your orchid starts growth, obviously you need to support that growth. When it creates roots, or if your pseudobulb shrivels too much, you need to water. Maybe don't fertilize just yet. Wait until the growth has a good root system and then fertilize. But yeah, just follow what your orchid says, because if you restrict everything now and the growth starts to grow more and more, it will start to become deficient and deplete itself. And yeah, Catasetums depend on the new growth. Just follow what the orchid says, because sometimes it wants different things depending on the year. And to address the second question, do young Catasetum orchids behave as adult ones? Yes, they do. Well, I guess when they come out of the flask, when they're super, super, super tiny, maybe they don't really behave like that because they need to grow faster. But at some point, when they have visible pseudobulbs, even if they're tiny, they will behave indeed like the adults. So it's absolutely normal, even for younger or seedling Catasetum orchids, to require a dormancy. Again, just do what the orchid tells you to do. If you see no new growth, no leaves, the pseudobulbs are not shriveling, do not offer water. It's not needed. And do not fertilize, of course. Catasetums are fun little creatures, and the book says that you should give them a rest, but the experience says otherwise. Hence why experience is more important than the book. And the last question we're gonna take for today, don't worry, I have more questions saved here, so I will try to address all of them in the future episodes. So Anne Batten says, finally found a scented orchid. I'm so happy for you. I have 12 Phalaenopsis, all very healthy. So excited about the scented that I bought 4. 3 died over time. It happens. I have 1 left that is alive, but struggling. My question, do scented Phalaenopsis orchids require different upkeep? No, they should not. Scented Phalaenopsis, usually why they're scented is that they have more heritage from a scented species, and most of them, and I think you have noticed, they have more waxy flowers. Yeah, they look a little bit more like the polychilus type, or what we call the summer bloomers, because those are typically fragrant. But no, they are not more finicky or more robust than the normal hybrids. They should not be, and I personally have not experienced any difference between them. However, there is such a thing as a more finicky hybrid, may be a little bit of a quote-unquote failed hybrid. That's a little weird to say, but like, let's put it like that. It's a hybrid that is not very adaptable to home conditions, let's say. It looks gorgeous, it has a beautiful scent, but it is more sensitive than other hybrids. You will still put it on the market, even if it's more sensitive. It might be, I don't know if all 4 orchids are from the same line or are the same type of hybrid, but it could be that that particular line was just either not very robust, more sensitive, either there was something, if they propagated them through tissue culture, maybe there was something involved in the genetics of that thing that they cultured, of the tissue they got. It could be anything that maybe those particular orchids were suffering from, or maybe they're just more sensitive. But no, generally scented orchids or Phalaenopsis orchids are not more sensitive than normal ones. You should not stay away from them because they're gorgeous, they're beautiful. Maybe those particular ones had some issues, that particular line. So try others. There are not so many, but there are quite a few scented hybrids that I've seen in flower shops, and I'm so happy because, you know me, I'm a scent maniac, and I think scented orchids are absolutely amazing. Right, so that is enough for today. Thank you so much for leaving me your questions. If you have questions and you can attach photos, leave them down below and I will try to answer them in my future episodes as soon as possible. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video and I hope you learned from other people's questions as well. Thank you rePotme for sponsoring yet another episode of this series. I am getting really excited about it. And I especially like when I have photos to actually tell you exactly what I see. So keep them coming. Thank you so much again and I hope to see you next time.